These are Pokemon's Pseudo Legendaries. They're a group of Pokemon defined for having 3 stages with a final base stat of 600, which is higher than some Legendaries. But game design for this class of Pokemon has actually been pretty awful throughout the generations. And despite being immensely powerful, some of these Pokemon can even make a playthrough harder than it would be without one. And so today we're going to be evaluating the performance of Pseudo Legendaries through each Pokemon game. We'll then finish by determining what the best in-game Pseudo is of all time. We're going to start things off with Generation 1's Dragonite, which is a great example to showcase why Pseudo Legendaries can often be overrated. Now, you're probably thinking, 134 attack, 100 special, how could I possibly sit here and say that Dragonite is bad? Well, you're kind of right, because on stats alone, Dragonite in a vacuum is quite good. But there's a lot more to discuss than just stats. And Dragonite falls into the first issue that Pseudos face, which is simply that it's not worth the effort. Because the game just doesn't hand you a free Dragonite. To get one, you have to first catch a Dratini and then grind it up as a Dragonair. And it's that right there that is an opportunity cost. Think about it this way. You can grind any Pokemon up to level 100 and then go and stomp the Elite Four. So any Pokemon can become strong, but you wouldn't sit here and say that Raticate is good because a level 100 Raticate can stomp the league. Typically, we like to think the Pokemon that can beat the game fast with no grinding are the best, and that's why players like Nidoking so much. Let's start with Dratini. The highest level you can get Dratini in these games is in red, the Celadon Game Corner at level 18, or in blue at level 26 for 92,000 Pokédollars. In yellow, it's even worse though, with the highest level Dratini or Dragonair you can catch being level 15 in the Safari Zone, where the upcoming gym leaders are level 50. Even worse though is Gen 1 Pokemon has very little EXP to go around. And so especially when considering that Dragonair is in the slow level up group, it's very realistic to not even have Dragonite by the time you get to the Elite Four. So not only does it perform bad through most of the game and need all of your investments, for it to be good, you will still need to further grind it. But hey, let's say despite all this warning, you're super dedicated. You give Dragonair all your rare candies, make it fight a ton, and then grind it in Victory Road to get it all the way to level 55. What do you actually get? Well, with 5 fights left in the game, there's not really that much it can do. Lorelei starts the E4 with Ice, so that first fight won't be too incredible. Next are Bruno and Agatha, who are terrible, so there's no marginal benefit here. And so it's really only in the Lance fight that Dragonite can first finally provide a massive benefit. And you know, to give it credit where credit is due, it's also really good in the champion fight. And it's like players will focus on that little thing right there and say, all that effort was worth it. But the thing is, all that time and effort you just spent, you could have picked up many other Pokemon like Gengar, Alakazam, Gyarados, Starmie, or Nidoking and done the exact same thing, but with no grinding and a much smoother mid-game. And so the reason that Dragonite is not useful in Gen 1 is that you can achieve the exact same late-game outcome with a fraction of the effort using other Pokemon. It's now time we move on to Generation 2. And unfortunately, Tyranitar sees the exact same issue in Gold, Silver, and Crystal. So in Gen 2, for some reason, Larvitar is not available until after you acquire all 16 badges. At this point in the game, there is one major fight left, and this just makes it pretty hard for Tyranitar to be of any use. Like training up a level 20 Larvitar to 65 just for red. Listen, Tyranitar is one of my favorite Pokemon ever. It's obviously had an amazing career in competitive, but for whatever reason, and all just down to availability, Game Freak decided to destroy this thing for Gen 2 playthroughs. Now, for most of this video, we're going to look at the regional Pseudo, but the reality is that Gen 2 Pseudo is once again Dragonite, so it's Dragonite we're gonna look at once more. Now, in Gold and Silver, Dratini can be picked up in the Goldenrod Game Corner at level 10. 10 levels below Whitney, it's not a great start, but certainly better than Gen 2. On Crystal though, players are best to wait until getting their 8th badge, where they're given an extreme speed Dratini at level 15. Now that is much worse, but what really solidifies Dragonite being terrible in this generation too is that the champion fight caps at just level 50, which is 5 levels before Dragonite even evolves. Like, Dragonite's levels are so high that it doesn't even work for the champion fight. They literally had to early evolve all 3 of them. Like, what is this Pokemon? Now, sure, you can make the argument that Dragonite can come online eventually in Kanto due to level curves. That's probably going to be like the very back end of Kanto. So I don't know, running a Dratini the entire game, using up all that XP, that slot for like a slightly easier blue and red fight. Gen 2 is again a game where Pseudos just run into that first design issue of just not being worth the effort. Now, moving into Gen 3, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald are a little bit more interesting because they actually drop 2 Pseudos. It's the only time they've ever done that, and more so, it's extra cool because one is Metagross, and I mean, come on, look at that specimen. Baxcalibur could never. Anyway, despite its coolness, there is a very, very big issue with Metagross for in-game performance, and that's because Beldum, the first stage of this evolution, is not available until after beating the game. The only fight in the story you can use Metagross for is Steven's post-game fight in Emerald. So while I love it, it's really not doing anything. It's basically like a Tyranitar issue. You can't use this Pokemon until you become champion, and then you have to grind and grind and grind forever for the post-game final boss. Metagross, I love you, but you're not worth it. Fortunately, however, there is a second Pseudo we can talk about. So Bagon can be acquired in the back room of Meteor Falls after the 8th gym. This is later than you would pick up a Dratini, but unlike Dratini, Bagon can be found as high as level 35. Even more important is that Shelgon evolves into Salamence at just level 50. All these factors actually work together to make a decent case for Salamence. To get a level 35 Bagon to level 50, it's going to need about 100,000 XP. And for context, a Dratini would take about 200,000 to go from 15 to 55. So even if you slap down an EXP share and just run through Victory Road, you're still going to need to grind Bagon quite a bit to get it to evolve. So in this case, there is still once again a trade-off, but this is the first time I think that there's a case to be made that this trade-off is actually worth it. It's less effort, Salamence has great stats, and an amazing ability. By purely outstatting the enemy, it matches very well in the first 2 E4 fights, but these are the easiest and least demanding. And with a 4x weakness to ice, the Glacia fight is an absolute wash. Similarly, using your own dragon is not the best way to take down Drake either. Intimidate and Dragon Claw can certainly be useful against his Kingdra, but it's definitely not going to sweep. And while useful, it also matches up really bad in the champion fight of Emerald. We've got some bulky, specially defensive Pokemon, and 3 of Wallace's 6 Pokemon no ice moves. I should also note that if you're playing Ruby Sapphire, it does make great use of Earthquake against Steven, so I don't know. Bagon and Shelgon do take much less time to grind into their final form. You can only really use them for the Elite Four, but at the very least, it's still attainable and good. Salamence is really helpful in 2 to 3 fights, but due to its stats and ability, it is going to provide benefit in every single fight, even against Glacia. Like, I don't know, it's just a Salamence. It's going to help you in any circumstance. So overall, Salamence is the first Pseudo that actually makes a case for itself. But even if you do want to go full yes, Salamence is great, totally worth it, it's here just as we start to see a Pokemon provide benefit that we actually start to run in the second issue of Pseudo Legendaries. All right, time to back it up. Apart from stats, there is a whole other reason that people like Pseudo Legendaries. The Pseudo Legendary follows what I like to call in video games the zero to hero arc. It's a really popular term in Fire Emblem, but basically it's the idea of taking this really weak, not very impressive Pokemon, grinding it up through the whole game, and then it turns into this absolute powerhouse that just helps you so much in the end. Gen 1 Dragonair can be caught early and you can grind it up. Kind of. It's more like a babysitting mission, but the problem with that Pokemon is that it's just like not worth it. Salamence does actually bring more of that payoff. Because Bagon comes so late, I feel like you don't get that zero to hero arc. You run through all the gym leaders, it's like this last minute addition, and it just doesn't really feel, 1, like you're fulfilling that arc, and 2, it doesn't even feel like it's a real member of your team. I feel like so many people hate running Legendaries because it's just this late game slap on that's like a really strong, easy catch. But you know how Legendaries just like, they're on your team in the Elite Four and it's like, what is this guy? Like, he's not part of my team. A Pseudo that's not able to be caught until the very end game kinda has that same effect. And maybe you don't care about this, but I've seen that zero to hero arc is really fulfilling for people. And so while Salamence is arguably very good, I just don't know if I love its game design placing it so late. Now, the Gen 3 remakes don't see much of a change for the Dragonite line. Dragonair is still pretty bad to use through the game, and it still evolves at level 55. The XP share is now still in the game, but splitting all gained XP with an underperforming Dragonair isn't really my cup of tea. And now the Dragon actually has moves, Dragonite is also at a higher risk to get wrecked by Lance. Now, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum Pseudo is the mighty Garchomp, and if Cynthia has taught us anything, it's that this thing should be feared. But the question for us is, should it be used? Well, the long and short of it is yes. For the first time, Garchomp is an undisputed yes. So in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, Gible can be found after getting cut and gaining access to Cycling Road. There's a secret entrance to the cave on the left, which, despite being blocked by strength boulders upon entering, by simply turning a bunch, you can find Gible. Now, Gible comes at level 15 to 17, but given its spot in the game is actually not that bad. More importantly is that this is going to be the first line of non-final form pseudos that are actually useful. So Gible has low base stats of 300, but Gabites are the normal range of 410, and you can evolve Gible into Gabite at a much more generous level 24. And this thing has a respectable attack and speed of 90 and 82. Plus, unlike the past dragons that have to rely on the offensively bad dragon type, this line gets access to stab ground moves. Now, sure, Gabite is not going to be carrying the team, but I think that Gabite is designed so perfectly in these games. Like, Gabite helps you out, it can contribute, but it is just a slight underperformer. But this is, again, the Zero to Hero arc. Like, it can take care of itself, and all this time that you're running it, it's becoming a team member, right? It's one of the gang. And then you hit level 48, and it evolves into Garchomp. And oh my god, Garchomp is actually finally like a really good pseudo for the Elite Four. This thing could bully Aeron with stats and shake down Bertha's rock types with Earthquake. Makes easy work of fire type Flint, and best of all, it even learns Crunch for Lucian. Like, come on, why has it taken 4 generations to get something like this? This thing is also great for Cynthia because, you know, she's like really hard. 130 attack, 102 speed, a fast pseudo that wrecks the E4 and is usable through the whole game. That is beautiful game design. And more importantly to me, this feels like the first instance where Game Freak finally nailed the pseudo formula. Will they nail it again? We're gonna have to keep going through these games to figure out. Now, it's also worth noting that you can catch a low chance Larvitar in these games. Unfortunately, given the worse mid-game performance and much higher level evolution, it's pretty unlikely you'll even get a Tyranitar by the Elite Four. There's simply no sense in tearing your hair out trying to grind up a Pupitar when you can just get a Garchomp for way less effort. Now, in the Gen 2 remakes, Larvitar can be acquired much earlier in the Safari Zone by default. Unfortunately, it is still not well suited for the later game. It's a very slow rock ground type, and so it just is going to suffer against fighting, steel, water, ice, and dragons. Furthermore, the levels are just still so ridiculously low in these games that you once again can't even get Tyranitar before becoming champion. I don't know what it is, Johtoman is just really unfriendly to pseudos, so Tyranitar is once again not worth it. But of all the generations for pseudos, nothing quite boggles my mind like Generation 5. So the Black and White Elite Four caps at level 50. Ghetsis, who, spoiler, most people consider to be the final boss of these games, caps at level 54. You're probably thinking, hey, no big deal, right? We've seen 55, 55, 50, 48. Game Freak's got a trend going on here. They're learning. All right, what level's my pseudo coming at? 64. It's 64. Look, I don't care about what argument you want to make about Ghetsis not being the real endgame. You know, you still haven't fought Alder and he's the champion, so that's when the game ends. It doesn't even matter. Like, even with that, I don't care. Dino, whatever the hell this thing is called, doesn't even get its second evolution until level 50. I don't get it. It feels like I am missing something. It just evolves late. I don't know, man. It's like a Gen 5 thing. It could have been really good, but you can't use it. So that's real tough. Now, Black and White 2 sees basically the exact same thing. You can't even have a Hydreigon for the hard mode champion fight in this game. But one thing that's really interesting about Black and White 2 is you can actually catch a pretty late but high level Metang. And since I love Metagross and we didn't really get to talk about it for Gen 3, I feel like this is a good spot to throw the lad in. So Metang is found after acquiring all 8 badges in the Giant Chasm, and you can catch it as high as level 52. Now, what's interesting here is this is really the first instance of a pseudo coming at a later level. And from a game design perspective, what this does is it makes it so that there is much less cost to run a pseudo, which, you know, assuming that it is good, makes it satisfy that first criteria of actually being worth it. Now, the E4 in this game are level 58 and Iris is 59, so you can have a Metagross for these fights pretty easily. So overall, the only downside is that you would want to run just 5 Pokemon for a playthrough, but that's fairly common anyway, so I don't even think it's that big of a deal. Metagross is just a late game, low effort, high value team member to add, and for this reason, it's actually a very solid pick. Unfortunately though, it isn't really going to satisfy that zero to hero arc. I'd much rather pick up a late game pseudo that is good than, just never use one at all. So, it's not like there's anything wrong with this design. I think the problem is just that the design is more fun when there is that arc. Now, in X and Y, Gumi can be caught at level 30 after the 5th gym, and it's a really bad idea to do this. Listen, zero to hero arc, whatever you want to say, Gumi's just not that good. It's cute, but ugh. Now, fortunately though, you can actually catch Sliggoo before the Elite Four at level 48, just 2 levels before it evolves. Now, Goodra is interestingly the first really defensive pseudo-legendary with 150 special defense and pure dragon typing. It also makes solid use of Ice Beam, Dragon Pulse, Draco Meteor, Sludge Wave, and Fire Blast. So really, Goodra is just a pretty free, super strong Pokemon to pick up and help in the late game. The only thing that really pulls back Goodra's easy worth is that there's so many good Pokemon in this game. You've got the starters, you've got the Mega Kanto starters, you've got Mega Lucario. I mean, hey, sure, I'll take a free pseudo. It is going to help the team. It's just is it contributing that much? Goodra is fine. What's interesting though is this is once again just a super easy free late game pickup pseudo. The first time they really did it was Black and White 2, and it's oh, we're doing that again. We're gonna actually say that this is gonna be a trend for the next few generations. Now, in the Gen 3 remakes, Beldum once again cannot be acquired until after beating the League. Dino is available in Meteor Falls now, but Hydreigon, level cap. So that again leaves us with Bagon, which can now be caught at level 40. And really, Salamence is pretty similar in the remakes. It's an overall super strong Pokemon that now comes with even less investment. Plus, since your champion is Livingstone and you can give this thing Earthquake, it's probably worth it. The only problem with Salamence, well, 1, you can't actually get its Megastone until after the game. 2, the game hands you a free Mega Latios and Latias, which are Mega Dragon types, 700 base stats for free. So yes, Salamence is really good, but you don't need another strong dragon. So it's unfortunately just not really worth it. Look, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. Now, Salamence actually appears once again in Sun and Moon with a big vengeance against the Lottie twins, because you could theoretically get a Salamence with just 200 encounters at the very start of the game. Level 8, 12 Salamence, it's what? Now, we talked about this in our recent best Pokemon in every game video, and some people didn't feel like it was fair to count this, but personally, I don't see a reason not to. In some games, the amount of time it would take to grind a pseudo to its final stage is the same it would take to get this early Salamence, but in this case, Salamence is amazing because you can take advantage of its great stats through the whole game. So, I mean, is this worth it? Yes. Does it satisfy the zero to hero? No. But is it fun to toast the game with the Salamence? Yes. So, cool. But what about Como-O, the regional pseudo? Well, this line does come much later in the vast Pony Canyon, but it's still one of the best pseudos we've seen. What makes this line so useful is that it actually evolves at level 45. Now, for most of this list, we've been talking about a lot of hypothetical grinded needing for pseudos, but this is another time where it's just not necessary. You can get the base form Jangmo-O at level 43 and just boom, 2 levels, fully evolved pseudo. Now, fighting isn't incredible against the Elite Four with a flying and ghost member, but there is also a rock specialist, and it's one of the best matchups for the champion. So once again, we really see the pseudo design changing, where they've really just tossed out the grind arc, and it's end of the game, here you go, just take the thing. And again, it's a better design than being so bad you're not going to use it, but I do feel like it's kind of a lazy game design. Now, in the Let's Go games, Dratini and Dragonair's locations change, but they still come between level 18 and 23. Now, the EXP share in these games just gives everyone EXP. In this case, getting Dragonite a lot easier. So if you're not running a 6th slot, it's probably worth it. Overall, Dragonair is not going to do much until the end of the game, but pretty much free Dragonite for the end, solid. And also, since I guess you get it early, it does kind of satisfy that zero to hero arc. So, I really never would have guessed that Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee would have good anything designed. But honestly, I guess it does handle the pseudo situation better than most games. Now, moving on to Sword and Shield, you can get Dreepy after the 2nd gym in a 2-star raid. And so, okay, cool. We're moving back to early pseudo that you can grind up for the whole game. The problem is that this thing has 270 base stats, and it doesn't reach its 2nd stage until level 50. It also doesn't learn any new moves, so it just entirely destroys the purpose of any sort of semblance of wanting to to use this thing because you like it. So no attachment, no fun. We just gotta move to the endgame, where Dracloak, the second evolution, has a 1% chance to visibly spawn in the Lake of Outrage. And after the 7th gym, you can catch Pokemon up to level 55. Dragapult evolves at just level 60, and because of the EXP share, it won't take any time to get at all. And so, once again, we're seeing the exact same formula. End of the game, super strong Pokemon, here you go, just take it. Dragapult is really good, it's super fast, it's just ghost type, so basically helpful in every fight. Also, come on, this guy just looks so sick. So yeah, Dragapult is a really solid pseudo, but again, I ask what the thought process is when making a Pokemon like Dreepy. Is it just to sell merch? Because even then, why wouldn't you make it kinda good so I can use this all game? And then fall in love with it, if Dreepy is so bad that you're never going to use it, why does it even exist? To me, I think that is just unequivocally bad game design. Anyway, moving into Gen 4's remakes, BDSP players can't actually catch Gible quite as early as in the original. In this game, you actually need strength access to get to that part of Wayward Cave where you find Gible, and that kind of sucks. Because instead, you're gonna wanna wait till after the 7th badge and head to Fountain Spring Cave in the Grand Underground. Gible could spawn here at levels 42 to 46, meaning Garchomp can basically come for free instantly. And again, it's great. It's yeah, Garchomp for free, sick. It's such a good Pokemon. But I just think, anyone, who's played the originals and played these games, I just feel like there is a disappointment in just getting that free Garchomp. It just is a little bit less exciting and a little bit less valued. What I'm trying to say is BDSP Garchomp just doesn't hit the same. Now, Pokemon Legends Arceus is a very different game from the others, so it doesn't really fit into our ranking system well. Overall, I do think that we can agree Hisuian Gudra is extremely solid. It's got an interesting way to acquire it. But finally, let's take a look at Scarlet and Violet. At this point in the series, you can catch any pseudo you want. I mean, the last few games have been that as well. And once again, end of the game, they just hand you a free level 49 Artibax encounter. So, just 5 levels to evolve it into Baxcalibur, which, side note, I hate this thing. Oh my god, I hate Baxcalibur so much. Look at all these other pseudos. Look at Baxcalibur. He is not the same. Archaludon, it should have been you, man. You're cool. You're unique at least. God damn, I hate Baxcalibur. Anyway, Baxcalibur is good. Yeah, that's it. Listen, this is the exact same thing. Let's move on. Okay, so before we rank all the pseudos, I want to come back to the title of this video. I do believe that as a whole, pseudo legendaries are vastly over-exaggerated in terms of usefulness for a playthrough. They are very rarely around for more than 5 fights in a game, and if they require any more amount of grinding, it's generally not worth it. The bigger question though is, does the pseudo design suck? Not the visual design, but the actual way they're implemented into the game. I think there is a very large group of Pokemon players that don't like to run legendaries. It's just this strong free thing that overshadows these Pokemon that you've grown with. And with that in mind, I think that in the second half of Game Freak's development, they've basically just turned pseudo legendaries into literally a pseudo legendary. Yes, obviously they're strong legendaries, but what I'm saying is I don't see how this archetype where you just get a pseudo 2 levels before it hits its final stage, how is that any different from just catching a 570 base stat, 600, 670 base stat actual legendary? The first 4 generations, they attempted to give it a 0 to hero arc, and for the most part, that didn't really work because they made all the early stages bad, so you just had to babysit it and not actually use it. And then they decided, actually, no, we're just gonna make the pseudo a free late game pickup, and then the pseudo just has 0 different identity from an actual legendary. So unfortunately, for an actual in-game playthrough, a lot of pseudos just don't really exist for any reason. But with that said, I'm a sucker for ranking things, and so we're actually just gonna rank them in terms of how useful they are for a playthrough. Which, starting at number 10, the least useful pseudo for its home region has to be Metagross. And that's simply because it's not available for any fights. Metagross is obviously great, but for the context of an in-game playthrough, the line just doesn't help you, plain and simple. The second worst pseudo in its own region is then Tyranitar. Just like Metagross, it's not available till post-game, and even then, until the very last fight of the game. Even in the Gen 4 remakes, it's not getting evolved till after the champion fight. It's just really, really bad. And similarly, Hydreigon is next. Once again, exact same situation where it's post-game and only can contribute in like one fight. Now, fourth worst is then Dragonite. Dragonite is actually available through the whole game, but the problem more so is that in Gen 1, it just kinda sucks. The thing is a huge time sink, and even if you grind it, you might not even see it evolve by the end of the game. So Dragonite is above the prior three, but not very good. So in their own region, in terms of a playthrough, these first four Pokemon do honestly just suck. You're not doing anything to beat the game. Sorry, I love you guys, but you suck. The next 5 Pokemon we're going to look at absolutely do not suck. They all come super late, but require minimum grinding and provide a lot of benefit. Now, since each game is different, it's hard to nail these exactly, but if you're forcing me to pick a definitive list, I would say next it's Goodra. While the bulk is nice, I find that I'm often mostly just looking for more power in the late game, and Goodra isn't that strong. Pure Dragon type is kind of underwhelming, and there's also just a lot of other good Pokemon, so despite the low cost, I just feel like Goodra also doesn't provide that much. For number 5, and this may be more controversial, I would go Salamence. Despite the bad matchups, Salamence is incredibly useful in Gen 3 for what is a pretty tough Elite 4. And number 4, I would then say it's Baxcalibur. It's useful against the Flying and Ground Elite 4 members and does really well against Dragon 2. I do hate its design, but that's for another video. Now at number 3, I think I would be inclined to say Dragapult. It's free, really fast, and Ghost can hit pretty much everything for neutral damage. So Dragapult just always has something to do, and it's never a bad late game ad. At number 2, I'm then surprisingly actually going to give it up to Como-O. It's got the earliest evolution, and fighting type is amazing in the champion fight. And so despite these 5 being usable, worth it, good, there is a lack of reward I get from using these 5. And so actually, after this whole discussion, thank you so much for making it to the end. In the entire history of Pokemon, I actually believe that there is only one well-designed Pseudo in its home region. And ironically, not only is it the one Pseudo that I think has really smart game design, it's also just the strongest and best to use. Garchomp in Gen 4 is an absolute monster. But what makes this Pokemon, I think, so special to so many people is that it's love for the whole line. Like, Jangmo-O, never even heard of that guy. It's not just Garchomp. Gible can help out. Gabite can contribute a lot to a playthrough. Like, these are core memory Pokemon for a lot of people. And then, you know, all that work, all that effort, this pal grinding alongside you ends up the Pseudo that actually has the best performance in the Elite 4 of the series. Garchomp is not just the best in-game Pseudo to use, it's also the one that is the best designed. Thank you guys so much for coming to my TED Talk. You made it here. I don't know, comment, credit gang. I will see you later, and